What's up, RotoGrinders? Welcome to FanDuel sponsored Crunch Time. I'm your host, TJ Zwarich, joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz. Shiver me Timbo, Tasteful Tides. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. We're rooting for Flacco, right? It's a positive game script, so hopefully he can start throwing some TDs here. But this is going to be a pretty good 7-game NBA slate. Feels like there's fewer games than that, which means that ownership is going to condense on a couple teams here. But we'll break that down for everybody.
It feels like a smaller slate than it is, but at the same time, This is arguably the most value we've had on a slate this entire season. Like, regardless of how big the slate is, like there are so many different cheap options we can go to today. Got some of the guys who were some of the best plays this morning. We're not even considering anymore in terms of value because so much has opened up. Going to be pretty interesting to break down, and to help us do that from a tournament standpoint, we got my guy Kyle Murray. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Running it back. We had the NFL show, so I flipped the hat backwards, so it's a little bit of a different look for anyone who's tuning back in, so that way they know that's a different show. But yeah, excited to talk some hoops now with you guys.
I do appreciate how perfectly the hat matches with the sweater. I could tell it was well planned out. There's no lack of professionalism here. You came here to play. Let's start with breaking things down on our sponsor, FanDuel, because Crunch Time is presented by FanDuel. Bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets for new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Those of you in the great state of Vermont now have access to FanDuel Sportsbook as well with a special offer. Bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets on any market. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And if you're using some of those FanDuel bets, you can take them straight from our props and pick 'em package. The experts at the RotoGrinders projections team take our premium stats and comb through the market for any inefficiencies. Using our model, you can easily see which lines are off, where to find them, and how likely the prop will hit based on our tool. You can now try out the props and pick 'em package as a 3-day pass. This will auto-renew, though, at the end of the monthly rate once the 3 days are up. So use the link in our description for the 3-day pass. Make sure you keep an eye on that just in case for some crazy reason you don't want to keep it going. And finally, there's NFL tonight, but you can also use SimLabs for NBA now. SimLabs will generate through DFS lineups through the power of simulation, combines data from every aspect of the slate to churn out lineups that match your preferences in just a few clicks. You can have hundreds of well-built, correlated lineups ready to go for whatever contest type you're playing, now including NBA. So you can do it for this very slate. Try out NBA SimLabs for free while it's in beta using the link in our description right down there. And all combo and NFL subscribers currently have the NFL SimLabs tool, and they will also have the NBA SimLabs tool when it is out of beta. Smash the like button if you're watching us on YouTube. It helps us battle the YouTube algorithm. All you got to do is click a little button. You're watching on your phone, click hide chat, then smash that like button. It does wonders for us to battle that algorithm. Help us out. We're giving you some free content on a Saturday. We want to keep doing that, and in order to do so, we need those likes. Let's start diving into the slate, because even though we have a ton of value already, Tim, we're still waiting on some pretty important news. DeJounte Murray listed as questionable. He was a midday downgrade. We also got Jalen Brunson still listed as questionable. How you handling this slate from a cash game standpoint on FanDuel?
Well, I'm probably going to be playing an uncomfortable amount of Memphis players. That's what I'm going to be doing in cash on both FanDuel and DraftKings. They've obviously lost Morant. They ruled Bane out earlier. I believe JJJ is officially doubtful, but we have him out of projections. So assuming he doesn't go, I mean they are short quite a few big time usage players. So Memphis is going to be, you're probably going to be playing 4 Memphis pieces in cash on FanDuel. We could break down when we go position by position, but the other big team is probably Golden State. We're going to be going over that. Curry was ruled out. They obviously don't have Draymond back yet, so there's quite a bit of usage to go around. And then, of course, we have Dallas with no Luka. And so how do we kind of, go through that situation, and how do we respond to no Luka, and what guys do we get to for cash and or GPPs?
I filled in like Taylor had Luke Kennard, Tim Hardaway, Dario Saric all tagged as core plays. I agree with all three of those. I added in a couple more of my own. Feel free to disagree. I added Jacob Gilliard and Trae Young in there. What do you think about that, Tim? It basically just leaves us 4 positions left here to cover on FanDuel, making it a pretty easy build.
Yeah, actually, those are my 2 point guard on FanDuel, and they're point guard only, Gilliard and Young. So you can't play them anywhere else. So that's perfect for me.
And then, I mean, I don't want to get carried away and steal your job here, but I mean, we got Kyrie, we got somebody like Podsy here for our final small forward position. How am I doing? 7,400 remaining for 2 positions left.
No, I know, it's perfect. Do you have Tim Hardaway on that team?
It is. That was one of Taylor's core plays.
That was one of the core plays. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because I think that you should have at least one Dallas player on your cash game build. So yeah. So you got Kyrie, you got Hardaway. Yeah, I mean that looks good to me. I think people can figure out the last 2 pieces pretty easily. Cash, I mean, we've gone like all season long with really no really good value, and now tonight we have tons of it. And we really don't have a lot of guys to spend up on, so it's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird slate.
Because the other thing is it's not even like I mentioned Brunson and DeJounte Murray, but there's also still Brandon Ingram. There's also still CJ McConnell. Lots of questionable guys here. So I like this to start off from a cash game standpoint too.
I just want to bring up one thing real quick. You could there's another build that you could do, and that's leaving off Kyrie and then playing Giannis instead. Something like that, because I think Giannis has to be in consideration for all formats. So I wasn't purposely trying to leave him out, but I don't think that you can play Young, Kyrie, and Giannis. So you kind of have to choose 2 out of those 3. But I think that Giannis is completely viable for cash on FanDuel.
I think too, like you're choosing, to me, Young is the one you want to for sure make sure you have. And then I want to probably choose 2 of 3 between Kyrie, Giannis, and then Paolo Banchero.
Really? For cash?
I think so, just because we have the money, like say we go back to this Kyrie build, throw him there, 7,400 remaining. If we go Banchero, leaves us 5,500 for center. Does that allow us to do, not quite allow us to do the thing that probably would be the super easy thing. So never mind on that one, but I do really like him. Maybe that's just my tournament brain getting in. That's why I leave the cash to you. But going to the center position, Saric does have that center eligibility if you want to use him there, but are you leaning towards Tillman at center?
I'm leaning towards Tillman at center, and then also if you go like a little bit more balanced with your builds, like I love Vucevic tonight. Maybe I'll just leave him for my single entry team and not cash, but I think he's an absolute smash play tonight. So you've got to at least consider him, but he might not. I think Tillman is probably the cash game center.
All right, let's run this back to the point guard position. We got some fairly straightforward stuff for cash. Kyle, sorry, I'm used to doing these weekend shows, me, Tim, and Taylor. Kyle, we got a fairly straightforward build for cash, but tournaments, there are so many options. So let's start at point guard. Tell me who you're liking.
Yeah, I think on FanDuel, even though he's really expensive, SGA is still in play here. I mean, you just have all the salary in the world. We've been talking about all of these potential value options, and Giannis is definitely a guy who can fill up a lot of salary. Same thing with Kyrie and Trae Young, but some of those guys are in games with potential blowouts, especially Giannis. So I think SGA is one that could potentially go a little bit under the radar. And yes, the price is definitely higher on FanDuel, but still think he's firmly in play here. Another guy, CJ McCollum, 7-8 on FanDuel. You get him at point guard and shooting guard. No Zion today, so you're expecting a little bit more usage there. So that's another guy that I think makes a lot of sense in tournaments there. So yeah, those 2 are the first 2 that really stick out for me. Going down the board a little bit, Tyus Jones is a guy who I think could make some sense in tournaments. This is definitely more of a of a large field type play, but he is a guy who has been sort of limited minutes wise, not necessarily due to injury, but just the way the rotation works. And that's not been ideal for Tyus Jones, but really good game script here. Atlanta's, I think, 28th or 29th in terms of defensive efficiency. Washington's dead last. So these are two teams that don't play a lot of defense. So this game could have a lot of offensive production. So Tyus Jones is a guy I don't mind there. DeJounte Murray, another guy in that same game who I like as well. So I would say those are the four guys that really stick out from a tournament perspective. Jalen Brunson, we were talking about a little bit coming into before we hit live here, but he's a guy who I think could potentially sit in this one. We haven't gotten any like official news or anything to really believe that, but it just seems like a spot where he could sit. He's been questionable not only today, but also just for the last couple of weeks, pretty much exclusively. So it could be a spot with obviously all of Memphis. I think 4 of their 5 namely starters are out for this one. So 11-point spread in this one is just a natural spot for Brunson to either sit or be limited. So he's probably not a guy I'm taking a ton of shots on, but it is a good matchup here for him. So he's still in play as long as you're confident that he's going to play. But that's pretty much it for me at point guard. In terms of shooting guard, some of the guys carry over. Obviously, you can play Kyrie at shooting guard. You can play McCollum here as well. Pods is a guy that we talked about in the cash section. He makes sense. A lot of these guys who we talked about in cash can definitely be, strong tournament plays still. Pods, Kennard, Hardaway. Kennard strikes me as sort of a potential tournament fade here. I think he could be a guy who, isn't going to play additional run in a blowout. We know what Luke Kennard is. We've seen him for 6-7 years now. So we're not going to discover anything in blowout run and garbage time for Luke Kennard. So he could be a guy who isn't playing in garbage time. So he stands out as a potential tournament fade if you wanted to do so. Gilliard, who's 3,600 on FanDuel, didn't talk about him at point guard. He also strikes me as a potential fade just because he sort of fits the mold of Andrew Nemhard or Killian Hayes over the last week or so, where these guys step into new roles, but they're not really good producers. We don't really have a sample on Gilliard, so it could be wrong that he's maybe not a 0.7 fantasy point per minute player. So I don't mind taking a chance on him because I do think he plays 30+ minutes and he is super cheap. But so I probably will still play Gilliard probably around where the field is, maybe a little bit over. But Kennard could be a guy that you could get under on. Good.
The one thing I'll throw in with Gilliard too is he's $3,600, right? And so at that who do they play? They play New York, and we're still waiting on that Brunson news. So if we happen to get Brunson out, if you save that salary to go to some pivot to a Miles McBride or a Quentin Grimes instead of Jacob Gilliard in your lineup, could be a way to get different in that same game with a very easy way to swap. So that could be a way to pivot off the chalk if we happen to get Brunson out.
Yeah, absolutely. And another shooting guard that I do like for tournaments today is Klay Thompson. I think a lot of people are going to play a lot of Warriors, but it doesn't seem like Klay Thompson's going to get all that much play here. So I do like him a little bit. Obviously, small sample this year, but 28% usage rate, 1.2 near fantasy point per minute with Steph Curry and Chris Paul off the floor this season. A lot of volatility here just because Klay is not the same player that we are sort of accustomed to over the last few years, but and then potential blowout risk as well. But if you're going to play Giannis, I think playing a guy like Klay makes a lot of sense because if Giannis has that monster ceiling game, you're probably hoping this game stays close. And I think Klay actually has the best ability to help that game stay close. So Klay and Giannis strike me as a good correlation sort of pairing there. But I think that's about it for shooting guards. I think a lot of the guys we already covered. Levine's, I guess, another name that I could throw out there. But in terms of small forwards, a lot of these guys are also, Hardaway, Kennard, Pods, Banchero, you guys touched on. I think Banchero's a really strong FanDuel play. I like Jalen Johnson as well. He makes a lot of sense. Zaire Williams is a value option that I think is definitely in play here. If you're looking for a tournament player, potential pivot off of a guy like Zaire Williams, Roddy could make some sense. I don't really know how I feel about Zaire Williams if the game blows out. I could see him still playing a ton of minutes, but I feel very strongly that Roddy could play through the blowout and just play the entire game. So Roddy is a good permanent producer, a high usage guy who's on the floor. So I don't mind Roddy as a value option there. In terms of power forwards, I think Giannis is a strong tournament option. I don't think he'll be all that highly owned. I do think that a lot of people will kind of flock to Trae Young and potentially even Banchero and Kyrie Irving, obviously. So I think Giannis could potentially go a little bit overlooked. So I like him a good amount. Saric and Kuminga are good value options in that Golden State game, obviously with no Steph. Jalen Johnson, Banchero, two guys that were also small forward eligible that make a lot of sense. I think Julius Randle's a really strong tournament option, especially if you're playing guys like Tillman and Kennard. Because again, Tillman, I don't think will play through the blowout. Kennard, I don't think will play through a blowout. So if this game does happen to stay close and Jalen Brunson is limited or banged up or whatever, and Randall has a spike usage game, he could really benefit there with the ceiling performance, and that could correlate well with guys like Tillman and Kennard. Brandon Ingram, same sort of argument as CJ McCollum. I think he makes sense as a tournament play. And then for centers, a lot of guys we've already talked about: Sarge, Tillman. Capella's the guy that I have some interest in.
I love that call.
You're not expecting Capella to play a ton of minutes, so if this game does blow out, he's sort of insulated for blowout risk in his minutes projection. But it's a really good rebounding spot, really good blocked shot spot. So Capella, obviously, that benefits the FanDuel scoring. So I like him a lot. And then last name I'll throw out there, Kevon Looney as a potential pivot off of Sarge. He makes some sense as well.
I really like the Clint Capella call, and then in the same game at lower ownership, I think like large field only, it's high risk, but Daniel Gafford has a very high ceiling, and I think this spot is definitely a spot that we could potentially see him put up a ceiling game. We do have Jalen Brunson listed as a game time decision is our status alert, so we're not going to get anything until closer to that one. Tim, let's pivot over here to DraftKings, talk some cash over here. A reminder, if you're watching us on YouTube, smash that like button. It does wonders for us. We need you to do it. We want to keep giving these free shows on the weekend. Joe Flacco is absolutely killing us here, Tim. Back-to-back pick sixes. Yeah. I feel bad this morning too, because my dad was texting me seeing what he should do with his lineups, and I told him, don't play Joe Flacco with the Houston defense. For his mains, for his I wouldn't have mattered for a 2-game slate, but for the 6-game slate, I said don't do that. But right now, all of a sudden, looking like that could potentially work, but not looking good for us Flacco stackers out here. But we're not worried about football right now. We're talking about some NBA. We got Tim Hardaway Jr. once again tagged as a core play. Luke Kennard tagged as well. Dario Saric tagged as well. I think we might as well go in and throw in Trae Young. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. And then who would be like the other people you would be considering for that final guard spot in cash?
Same as FanDuel. Definitely would be Gilliard again. He's at 4,100. Should play around 30 minutes. He's definitely part of your cash game core. That to me, that's kind of a no-brainer in cash anyway.
And then center, you looking to go Tillman here as well?
Center's kind of weird today, but yeah, if you're not, if you don't have the money for Vucevic, then just go down to Tillman. But yeah, Tillman. And if you're not playing Saric at your power forward spot, then you have to play him at center, because you have to play Saric in cash.
And take everything I just said about Capella and Gafford on FanDuel and double it on DraftKings. I like them even more over there where they're cheaper. Who would be some of the other guys you'd be considering to fill out these final few positions?
Yeah, so I really like Julius Randle today, and that's even with Brunson in. Maybe he's not quite cash game viable, but single entries, GPPs definitely. I think you could play him in cash. I'm really debating playing him in cash, and that's with Brunson in. So if Brunson gets ruled out, then it's going to be the Randall show. Memphis is super undersized, so this is a really good spot for Randall to fill up the stat sheet. So I think it's an amazing spot for him. We mentioned the Warriors, so Pajemski, he just got ruled a starter, which is what we projected. Kyle made a really good call on Klay Thompson. I like him on both FanDuel and DraftKings with no Curry, and I think it's just a really good spot. Bucks aren't very good at defending the point, so I think it could be a smash spot for Pajemski and or Klay. So yeah, they're all affordable, and you can fit them into that build that we have on the screen.
I like it. Kyle, take me through some of your favorite tournament plays here on DraftKings.
Yeah, so a lot of them, carry over from FanDuel to DraftKings as well. But on the point guard position, it's fairly similar, but I do think it's a little bit different because of some of the pricing. SGA is not as expensive, so there probably won't be as much of a discrepancy, but it does still seem like the public is on Kyrie, and then Trae Young, and then SGA in that order. So I think SGA is a really interesting tournament play. It's always tough fading Kyrie, but if you wanted to, there's two guys that you could potentially make those pivots for, SGA and Trae Young. Obviously, Kyrie looks like he's in a smash spot here. He's played 39 plus minutes in 3 straight games. No Luka, so he looks awesome. But Trae Young and SGA still have very similar ceilings to Kyrie here, and Kyrie's definitely going to be more popular than both of those guys. So that stands out as a spot to have some interest in as a pivot play. A couple other guys, Tyus Jones I mentioned on FanDuel, DeJounte Murray I think makes some sense if you're not playing Trae Young, TJ McCollum as well. So those are probably the main point guards that I like. And then obviously you have Gilliard as a value option as well. And as for shooting guards, again, same sort of names. Tim Hardaway Jr., he'll be popular, but I still think he's fine in tournaments. I think the biggest potential pivot spot or leverage spot at the shooting guard position is just playing Klay Thompson over Podziemski. I feel like our ownership has Klay Thompson as the more popular guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if Pods is actually more popular here. It just seems like he's getting more love across the industry. So if that's the case, Klay Thompson, I think, could be a nice leverage play there. And I like Klay Thompson's ceiling a little bit more there versus Pods. So that's a nice leverage spot that I'll be taking tonight. Other names, I think that's pretty much it. Shooting guard, you have Kennard down there as a value option. He's going to be popular, still more than fine. I think you can play Klay and Pods as well, so no issue there. Hardaway Jr., Levine is a tournament play that I mentioned on FanDuel. You can also play him on DraftKings. Don't mind him. And then Ingram, 8-8 with no Zion. In terms of small forwards, I think a lot of these guys carry over from the shooting guard position. Hardaway Jr. is probably going to be a guy that I'm just going to have in the majority of my lineups. Really like him, especially if you're not playing Kyrie. I think if you're not playing Kyrie, you got to play Tim Hardaway Jr. There's going to be some production here. Hardaway could easily get cold from 3 and have a down game, but he's going to get shots up. So there's going to be volume. There's going to be usage between those two guys. If you're not playing Kyrie, you should definitely be playing Tim Hardaway or some other Dallas guard, maybe Jaden Hardy that you think could benefit from that. DiVincenzo, I think, is an interesting pivot play, especially if you maybe think that Brunson is going to be limited or later ruled out. Don't mind taking shots on him. Both Memphis value small forwards, both Vince Williams, and Zaire Williams. They make some sense here as well. Clay already touched on. So in terms of power forwards, Banchero I like quite a bit here. Giannis I think is going to be pretty contrarian on DraftKings. I think all the guards that I mentioned, Trae, Kyrie, SJ will all be more popular than Giannis. So I think Giannis is going to go pretty overlooked. So I think that makes him a pretty strong tournament play, especially if pairing him up with a couple of Warriors. Banchero, like him. I like Randall. Jalen Johnson, I like. And then all the value guys that we've touched on, guys like Sarge. And then in terms of centers, Sarge, you can play at center position. Oh, sorry, one more guy at power forward. Gregory Jackson, I think, is a pretty interesting tournament play. He's 3K. He projects all right for me. I think that he's a guy that could benefit if the game does blow out. And if Tillman does fail, I think Gregory Jackson potentially play the end of the game there if the game does go sideways. So he's a guy that at 3K, I'll be taking some shots on. He's been over 1 fantasy point per minute, 1.1 fantasy point per minute on the year. So even if he gets 18, 19 minutes, he could easily make do on that time. So Gregory Jackson's the guy that I like. And then centers, Giannis, Randall, those are guys that I like in terms of spend ups. Saric, Tillman, I still think is fine, even though I'm a little lukewarm on his ownership. Saric, I think is fine as a pop. He's going to be very popular, but I still think he's a fine tournament play. But if you wanted to get off of that chalk, Kevon Looney makes sense. If the game plays a little bit bigger, Looney could steal some minutes from Sarge there. So Looney makes sense as a potential value option in tournaments.
A couple other tournament guys.
What are your guys' exposure to?
You go, Tim.
Sorry. No, I just wanted to bring up the Bulls. Other than Vucevic, it doesn't seem like they're getting much attention at all. And I was just curious what your guys' thoughts were on that, given that San Antonio plays at such a fast pace and are horrible defensively.
I
went with no Bulls.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, the one that I do have is Levine. I like him quite a bit. I still think he's a little underpriced just because of he was coming off of the injury and he was limited in that first game back, but he's played 35 plus minutes in 3 straight games. He had 2 really good games back to back. He's rebounding really well as well. So, and this is a great matchup for rebounding. So, Levine's the guy that I like from the Bulls.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on a couple other potential tournament options. If you're playing a bunch of lineups, you got these as like a pivot off of somebody like Saric, Dominic Barlow, or even Mamu for San Antonio. I think is interesting as a salary saving pivot off of him. And then at the power forward position, I believe there was one other person I wanted to mention. I think in the same breath as Gregory Jackson, I think Laravia is very interesting. But also keeping in mind, we could potentially get more New Orleans value with Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum still questionable, this being a second half of a back-to-back. So a couple guys I manually adjusted up to get in some builds. Nance and Dyson Daniels, I think, are okay. But Najee Marshall and Jose Alvarado, I both think could be really good value plays if we happen to get a few more guys ruled out there. And so pivoting to some QQs here, I'm going to be looking at the RotoGrinders live stream Discord. I'm going to be looking at the YouTube chat as well. Those watching us on YouTube, make sure you're smashing that like button. We got 14 minutes left here till lock. We got a ugly football game as Joe Flacco keeps throwing all the pick sixes in the world. And so maybe we'll end up getting out of here a little bit early so we can watch some football since we are cruising, making great time with 13 minutes left to go. FanDuel Cash, Tim, from NBA DFS. Would you rather go Giannis and Vassell or Kyrie and Randall? I think I know the answer.
Yeah, I'd rather go the second one, but they're both good.
DeJounte Murray is in, so he will play, and Dominic Barlow will start, not Mamu, and we had Mamu projected as the starter. So I think that makes me want to take out Mamu from my pool, and Dominic Barlow, I think, is a great tournament salary-saving option at the center position. Kyle, are you going to be wanting to get some Barlow in now that he's starting?
I think he's fine, but I probably won't have a ton of them just because I still like where I'm at in terms of that price range in that position. So yeah, I think he's fine, and he's a pretty good permanent guy, 0.85 DraftKings point per minute on the year, pretty solid rebounder. So yeah, I don't mind him. I do think he's a little bit more expensive than some of the other options that I like there. So I won't go overboard on it, but yeah, I think it makes sense.
All right, going over to the YouTube chat here. Pretty quiet in the Discord today. Everybody's watching some football. Sorry, I got to Nance, Barlow, Chetty, or Roddy for FanDuel. I believe that's a tournament, and so I'll throw that to you, Kyle.
I think I'll still go Roddy, but I think him and Barlow are very close.
Tim, you already answered this one, but I'm curious your take. So there's Corey Joseph, Trent, Grimes, or McBride. I know you said none of the above, but if we get Brunson out, how interested would you be in McBride and or Grimes?
I guess in that case, that would be fine. But I don't think you can build like that. So that's why I said none of the above. Because there's such a, it's just hard to prepare for that, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Kyle, how many lineups are you running today?
I have 3 main lineups and then a 150 build.
In your 150 build, do you have any Rockets or Celtics, or did you just exit out completely?
Let me check. I think I didn't exit out, but I did not get any of them, just naturally.
Yeah, we had a question from Flying Armbar that it's just, are we skipping that game? We exited out. That's what I did for my 20 entry max build. But at the same time, if you are playing 150, I don't think it's crazy to just say, like, I want 5% Tatum, because Jason Tatum could have 70 points any game, even if it's not a good matchup. What would be your favorite 2 games to stack for FanDuel? So I'll say, Kyle, what's your favorite game stack? And Tim, what's your favorite game stack?
Mine would be Washington, Atlanta.
Tim, how about you outside of Washington, Atlanta?
Okay, I would say Washington, Atlanta. I also really like the Knicks Memphis game.
All right. Kuzma and Denny Avdia, or Jalen Johnson and DeJounte Murray for a tournament, Kyle?
I'll take the Murray side.
And I think that does really depend, too, like Tim said in chat, who else is on that team. Because if you got Trae Young on that team already, go with the Kuzma and Denny side, right? You're getting some run back action, not hurting correlation with all of those guys. But if you don't have any other Atlanta guys, you definitely want Jalen Johnson, DeJounte Murray side. 3 entry max on DraftKings. Last piece, Zaire Williams or Jaden Hardy, Kyle?
I'll go Zaire Williams.
Flying Armbar asked Tim, who is your favorite cash game / single entry GPP center?
FanDuel, right? Yeah. I think it's Tillman, but if you don't have the money, then I would go Looney, assuming you already have Saric.
J3 says Kirkwood is the king of Yahoo, and y'all act like it's nothing. He is the king of Yahoo. I got nothing else to say there. It's absolutely true. Butthole Jenkins wants to know the Hulk or Venom. I guess it depends what you're asking. I still think it's probably the Hulk regardless. In terms of who's got cooler stories, it's probably the Hulk. In terms of who is stronger, it's definitely the Hulk. But I mean, I do love myself some Spider-Man, and there's some great Venom and Spider-Man stories, so I definitely don't want to be throwing any shade at Venom. Even if you're talking the movies, The Incredible Hulk or the first Venom movie, it's close. That's close. I think I'd still probably give the slight edge to the Incredible Hulk movie, though. DraftKings single entry, last player in the utility position. He's got 7,500, Kyle. Who are you going with?
7,500 on DraftKings?
Yeah. I think it's got to be Jalen Johnson.
I was going to say either Jalen Johnson or Vooch. I like Johnson a little bit more, though.
Do we think Saric doesn't get the start? They've already announced their starting lineup. Saric is in the starting lineup, so we don't have to worry about that. Derek Ringering asking DK GPP, if Brunson is ruled out, would you prefer Tillman and Roddy or Barlow and DiVincenzo? I'll throw that one to you, Tim. I like that Barlow DiVincenzo side.
Yeah, that's the side I would take if Brunson's out.
That's it for the YouTube chat. Looking back to the NBA Discord live stream chat, and I do see we got a couple people typing, so I'll hold off on getting us out of here early for now. But if we don't have any other questions, we will bounce out of here a little bit early because even though we're still waiting on the Brandon Ingram news and the Jalen Brunson news, because those games don't start for a while yet, we're probably not going to be getting that news on this show. So unfortunately, this is going to be a night where you're going to have to keep an eye on your phone, eye on your lineups, ready for updates. But at the same time, at least there's some football to watch, some playoff football to watch at the same time to keep us entertained. Flying Armbar wants a feel it in your plums play today. For me, I think, let me look at my exposures here. Who's mine? I guess if I'm feeling in my plums, I shouldn't have to look at my exposures. Jose Alvarado is mine. Jose Alvarado is mine. Derek Lively is out. Yes, we knew that he was going to be doubtful, so we were projecting him as out. Should I pivot to Vince Williams? Should I pivot Vince Williams to Dante DiVincenzo if Brunson is out, Kyle?
Yes.
Yeah, I like that play as well. J3 shouting out Tim's NHL DFS knowledge. He's continuing to profit. He says despite limited NFL knowledge. Oh, yeah, he meant NHL. There you go. Yeah, shout out to Tim, Moneyball, the whole NHL crew, because they are all absolutely fantastic. If you're not playing NHL DFS, you're not in that Discord, you're leaving money on the table. Kyle, who's your feel it in the plums play?
Gregory Jackson. I think it's a weird one, but yeah, 3K. I'm playing him in my main lineup. So even in my single entry lineup, I'll have Gregory Jackson there. So I'll go with Mr. Gregory Jackson.
Get yourself in a large field, play some Gregory Jackson, little Jose Alvarado, and win yourself $100,000 tonight. Tim, who's your feel it in the plums play?
I'm going with David Roddy. I think he goes for like 8 or 9x.
And I think he could potentially correlate okay with Jackson in a blowout too. Both of them getting a little bit of blowout run as a 3 and a 4, a 4 and a 5. Is Gilliard okay in a single entry GPP DraftKings? Absolutely, he is. Banchero or Randall? I feel like, and that's from Brandon Ingram himself. So like Brandon Ingram, tell us if you're playing tonight because you're still listed as questionable, and we could use that news. But For me, that's Banchero. Tim, I know that's for you, Randall. Kyle,
Yep.
who is that for you? And does it depend on if Brunson's out or not?
If Brunson's out, I'll take Randall. If not, I will take Banchero.
Yeah, I think that is probably the correct answer. DKDPP, last piece, Kyle. Trey or SGA?
That's tough. I'm gonna go with SGA slightly.
Brandon Ingram says he hopes he's playing tonight. He doesn't know for sure yet. He's probably going to give it a little pregame warm-up, see how he feels. Matt Hack says he's playing Wiggins tonight. Should I just punch myself in the nuts right now?
Yes.
Matt, I think you're already getting enough pain playing Andrew Wiggins that you don't necessarily need to punch yourself in the nuts as well.
I landed on him as my last piece, and I was like, no, I didn't know what to do.
So you gotta change something else.
Yeah.
This year with Steph and Chris Paul and Draymond off the floor, so very, very small sample size, but it's still very funny. 0.38 DraftKings points per minute for Wiggins. That's a real number, and that's like that's almost like you're trying to be that bad,
right?
Wiggins, Alan in chat says Wiggins is the punch yourself in the nuts play for Saturday. Punch yourself in the plums play of the night is Andrew Wiggins. Thanks. J3 says thanks guys. Let's cash or lose minimal. TJ was on like 8 shows today. Yes, Saturdays are my longest day of the week. We're producing, we're hosting. So do me a favor, hit that like button, make me look a little better. We're gonna get out of here for myself, for Tim, for Kyle, for the whole RotoGrinders team, for Alan hanging out in chat, making some great jokes. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow for some more football and some more basketball as well. Peace.